Hello, and welcome to Association Transformation 2022. Here we are in the midst of the new year. Welcome, Andrew Chamberlain, Consort Strategies. I'm Elisa Pratt, Brewer Pratt Solutions, and we are excited to have you with us for another Association Transformation conversation. How are you today?
I'm all right, actually. I'm okay. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Sorry to fire that off so quickly.
Yeah,
I'm kind of fired up today.
You're just coming at me and with questions like, how are you? How dare you ask me that? I'm not prepared for that ever.
I'm not prepared. You didn't have any talking points. Sorry.
That was not in the script.
You're right. I threw you a curveball. I apologize. But I don't know. In this new year, I'm enthused. I'm excited. I have clients that are energized and ready to start formalizing their transformations, taking those next steps. Yep. To not just survival, but evolution. And I don't know, I know it's only, January, February of the new year, but yeah. I'm energized.
I know what you mean. It feels like there's been a bit of a watershed moment, maybe, where we've just kind of now just as a world just said, right, let's just get on with stuff now. But I must admit, I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet actually, though, today.
Oh dear. Wait, let me just say for the 18 people listening, and the 5 of you in Belgium, thank you. This is Andrew taking this podcast totally off the rails. So
you know what I am? I'm hijacking the podcast.
Thank you. At least you're admitting it.
I am hijacking it because I do have a bee in my bonnet.
That's such an old lady thing to say.
Well, I am a bit of an old lady.
That's true. I'm glad you acknowledge it.
I want to talk about internationalization, internationalism. I want to talk about being global.
Okay. I think of you as a global guy, so this makes sense. Where is this coming from? What's happening?
Well, I am a global guy. And and for me, being international, having that international outlook, it's one of the big things that defines me. It defines who I am. It defines how I work. It defines how I go out there, get business. It defines who I connect with on LinkedIn and say, hey, want to do a podcast?
Hey.
Yeah, hey. And here we are, episode 51 later. Oh, episode 51. Hang on.
I know.
Isn't that like, I've just, Anyway, but look,
Area 51.
Oh, yeah. I knew there was but I've got to be my bonnet about it a wee bit this week because I'm just going to contextualize my bee, as it were. Obviously, I'm never, ever going to name names, and I would never do that. That would be wholly unprofessional. But what I will say is that this week at the Institute of Association Leadership, a long-standing member declined to renew their membership, which is that's their prerogative. That's completely their prerogative. I don't have a problem with that. They did, however, when we asked, what's the gig? Why do you not want to do that? Why do you not want to renew? They came back and they said, well, it's got, at the moment, the Institute's just got too much of a cross-Atlantic feel about it.
You're too global. You were accused of being too global?
Yeah.
Too international.
Yeah. Too international, too internationally focused.
So you are not tunnel visioned. You are not isolated.
These are your words.
You're not isolated enough.
Yes. And now once I got down off the ceiling, because actually when I read that, I was like,
so emotional.
I was like, well, I was really angry about it. Because, and I think that is because, as I said, it is one of the ways I define who I am and how I work, is having friends and colleagues and clients everywhere, all over the world.
Mr. Global. I'm going to get you a sash. It's going to say Mr. Global.
Thank you. And I love that. I love that I've got friends in the US, Australia, South Africa, Canada, New Zealand, across continental Europe. It's really important to me. And so then when someone comes back, well, no, let me take a step out. It's really important to me. And I personally equate it as, international, having an international perspective, having an international outlook as being, a quintessentially important aspect of conducting business, be it for profit or non-for-profit. I just think having a global outlook, global perspectives are incredibly important. So initially my gut instinct, because you're right, I am an emotional human being. I do react often rather than responding. But I did initially think, God, what is just basically a slap in the face for me.
Well, it's not that I don't want to talk about you the
but
entire
this is
podcast,
all about me, because actually this is
I
all
get
about
that.
me.
I'm
this
trying to pull us out of the.
And I was about to do that. If you just
good. I wasn't sure if you had the self-discipline.
So then when I came out of that rage, 20 seconds later, I came out of that rage and I started to reflect on it. And I thought, actually, we exemplify globalization. We exemplify international collaboration, the value of it and the success of it. And I'm talking about me and you as Andrew and Elisa,
absolutely,
Consort and Brewer Pratt, as well as all the other stuff we do for everyone else around the world. And I thought, but actually, and I do talk about it a lot. I talk about it all the time. And I think my failing is assuming that everybody else sees it the same, and that everybody understands it. When I talk about it, that everyone understands what I'm talking about, and that they automatically see the value that I see.
Okay.
And I think what I wanted to do, actually, that I've told you the bee in my bonnet. I've got rid of that bee in my bonnet now, and now I'm being much more reflective. I've been much more reflective about it, and I think, actually, why not use the pod as an opportunity to just talk about what it is when we say internationalism, internationalization, international outlook. That's why I'm hijacking the pod.
All right. So, but just for the record, this isn't just about you venting. We actually,
I've done it. I've vented now.
It's done. It's out. Okay. It's out of your system. Cathartic. We're done.
For now.
When you mentioned that you wanted to chat about this, I was excited to talk about that global market, because coming from the United States, whether it's the Arizona Association of whatever, or the American Association of this and that, everyone is experiencing a global market, a global world, and the potential of a global membership, if not collaborations with other organizations in their same sphere. So I think we're in a more global world than ever before. The world is smaller than it ever has been. And you and I are examples of that. But you're right to point out that maybe I don't want to say that it's those older execs set in their way, or it's just those very insulated and isolated organizations, but not everyone may see internationalization as a valuable path or a top priority. So I don't know, it's you're right. We don't want to impose our priorities on others, but for the love of God, how is it not part of your future outlook?
Absolutely. And I think what I want to see is, if an association turns around and says it's not a priority, international outlook is not for us, we don't care about that, that's totally fine. But I want to see that it's been an informed decision. I want to know that people understand the value, recognize the value, and are then making an informed and conscious decision not to pursue that. And that's totally fine. Not everybody has to be out there globally constantly. But what I feel a lot of the time is that there is this insular, and I talk about it from a UK perspective. Often we come up in this country, we come up against this sense of British exceptionalism, splendid isolation, and it's exhausting, because yes, some of us are exceptional, but there's a ton of other exceptional people and ideas and models and activities and creativity going on around the world. And I worry that that actually a lot of associations are making a kind of I can't even say a knee-jerk reaction or response to the opportunity of internationalization. I just don't think that even exploring it sometimes.
Well, let's talk about the steps to evaluate and to potentially dabble in that international global market. I mean, many of the organizations that I work with, whether they are in the scientific space, the medical space, or others, they have international counterparts.
Yep.
And I mean, isn't that the first level, the first layer to this is how do we collaborate with our international partners?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This doesn't have to be world domination right off the bat. I mean, you can look to expand, to learn, to offer your members more value because of the partnerships and the collaborations in which you're engaging. So this doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think there can be baby steps into a global conversation, because the market is global. I mean, even the most American and focused and isolated groups that I work with are still being impacted by a global supply chain.
Yes.
They're still being impacted by a global technology market, a economic system, an economic market that's impacted by a global world. So there's lots of questions to be asked, but
and I think for a wee, go on. Sorry, go on.
No, please.
Well, I was going to say, I think for a wee while we started to see that global perspective, diminish. Certainly, 2015 to 2020, we really saw less importance attributed to global opportunity, global markets. But actually, I think in the last 2 years, the whole technology has just dominated our lives, literally in front of our faces all the time. And I think markets that were previously ignored or opportunities that were previously misunderstood or thought inaccessible to people are now there. They're right in front of us. And I think you're absolutely right. That first step to collaborate with your counterparts overseas is a massive quick win. Because chances are, in a professional context, chances are, if you're the British UK Society for widget suppliers, and you're working in collaboration with the US Society of Widget Suppliers, chances are the resources are the opportunity to share resources and therefore realize massive immediate benefit for your members, whilst also realizing resource efficiencies for your budgets and your internal resources. Is huge. It's a no-brainer.
I mean, how powerful is that economy of scale, which is, I think, what you're referring to when we expand beyond our own borders, our own markets. It can be pretty special. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen organizations expand, and it comes down to their choice to be competitive. There are a lot of organizations that like how things are, that I believe are somewhat insecure when it comes to the idea of global competition, and they're not ready to put themselves out there. They're struggling just to define their value proposition at home, and reaching beyond their grasp feels more than they can bite off at that moment.
That's a really interesting point, because I see that as the absolute reason, or one of the absolute drivers as to why you should be prioritizing international.
Okay.
Because if you are struggling to justify your business case, justify your business model, explain the value proposition, if you are looking to just keep your head afloat, arguably, who's going to be understanding what your contemporaries are achieving or not, what they're also grappling with, and broadening your resource and your network within that context. But isn't that exactly the reason why you should be looking overseas? No, it's interesting. It's not just about the market development. By that, I mean, it's not just about increasing or diversifying your number of members and the resources that are immediately available to your members.
But that's not too bad of a good thing.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. But it's also about recognizing that, even if your members' specific focus is, absolutely national rather than international, domestic rather than global, you as an association leader, as an association manager, as an executive, you can still learn a lot from what other people are doing within a professional context. So even from a kind of really personal level, which is, I think, why that response, the IAL feels a bit is just too cross-Atlantic right now. It didn't make any sense to me, because I thought, but the reality is, there's so much that from which you can benefit and that you can share.
It may have just, Andrew, it may have just been an excuse. They may just not like you. I mean, that is a possibility. It may not have nothing to do with the internationalism, but we started this in a conversation.
I can't believe. Actually, do you know what? Knowing the person,
you can't accept that.
Knowing the person, they definitely don't like me. You're right, but I don't think that's why. I don't think that's right. But so there's the collaboration piece. There's the collaboration piece. Absolutely, that's a massive driver for it, and it's about value proposition and it's about personal, professional development as well. But then, what's the next step beyond that? What's the next step beyond the simple collaboration then?
Right. I think about revenue diversity. I think about access to new markets. You mentioned accessibility. That's brought the world around us closer and more available to us, greater entry point into the global markets through technology. And, how does that pair with DEI? How are we able to be more inclusive and expansive and have a broader diversity of thought, not just representation and faces on the board and participants on our panel, but to me, that's a way to live DEI beyond just your own market, but expand, and that diversity then can trickle through not just your membership, but your leadership and your perspective. How much better of an organization can you be at fulfilling your mission when you're able to see it from different directions, different perspectives, different markets, different time zones? And time zones make me think of all the reasons going global is hard and difficult. We deal with that all the time.
No, exactly. That's just a red herring. It's just an excuse.
But there are, I know that we play good cop, bad cop, but there are some elements of risk or challenge that need to be addressed. If you're going to have a global strategy, you need to go in eyes wide open in a couple key areas. Some are small, some are large. Absolutely.
But I also think, and I think, you spot, I'm only half dismissing that. I am, because
thank you.
Because the reality, but I mean, I know both of us know what the reality feels like of having to start a project at midnight, having to start a facilitated discussion at 2 a.m. because your client is, in the Asia Pacific region for me, or, in continental Europe for you. We understand what the kind of what the challenges are. We absolutely do. But I'm going to counter it again and say, that international piece, and it's been really interesting watching, over the last couple of years, the opportunity for talent acquisition, for greater access to talent and resources everywhere in the world. We've done to death now that it's been done. We know that we can work internationally, remotely. It can be done and it can be achieved. What is to stop us saying, well, actually, do you know what? Yeah, okay, we're headquartered, here we are headquartered in Belgium. Just a nod to our fans.
A nod to our fans.
Yeah, friends of the show, all 4 of you. What's to say we're headquartered in Belgium, but we're going to have staff scattered globally. We're going to have staff who are working in Eastern time. We're going to have staff who are working in, on the West Coast. We're going to have staff in Australia. We know what's to say we shouldn't be,
how many international, that's how for-profit companies work.
Yeah, exactly.
When you talk about transatlantic, global, international companies, teams abroad, teams that span every market, is how they stay responsive, is how they stay agile. And you're right, how they appeal to and capture the best talent in their space. If you're an association in Columbus, Ohio, and you're only providing yourself the opportunity to interact with members and talent staff in Columbus, Ohio, how have you limited yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and often, as a chief exec, up in Cambridge, I used to struggle a lot to in doing recruitment exercises to get enough people even applying for a job, because in Cambridge, it was all about tech spin-outs from the university. They could, I couldn't, as a non-profit, you couldn't compete necessarily with the type of salaries that they were paying. But if I'd been able to just sort of reach out and say, well, actually, I'm just going to cast this net wide, as wide as I can. And all right, I'm going to secure somebody who's absolutely top top dollar, top quality, but they're based over in, I don't know, Manila, or they're over in Malaysia, or they're in Brisbane. It's like, who cares?
This is really challenging your geographic knowledge.
Honestly, I'm just trying to think of all the places I haven't been. But and I think again, we talk all the time about 24/7 media, 24/7 media, 24/7 access, flexibility, accessibility to our membership services, to our value proposition. We can no longer be working in the confines of the 9 till 5 Monday to Friday. Our members expect the Netflix model. They expect that 24/7 access when they want it, when they need it, on-demand resources. Well, then it stands to reason we also need to then be thinking about, well, how do we service that on-demand? By providing that 24/7, arguably, or as much of 24/7 as we can resource.
Well, I think to the 501c3 and that nonprofit model, not charitable model, but when you have a mission that serves not just your members, but serves the world. A global model will allow you access and exposure to donors, to social media awareness, to supporters of your cause. And that's not tied to a time zone or even to those who are willing to join. Increasing the awareness of your organization, of your cause, your impact, your mission can have amazing impacts, not only on your reputation and your credibility, but in those fundraising terms. And people adding their names to your petition, and people liking and sharing your social media. It builds upon itself so quickly when it's done with intention.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a key word for me there, is intention. I think also, and I've been guilty of this in the past. It's always a bit of there's a perception that international is expensive, pound signs, getting on an airplane at Heathrow Airport, disappearing and never coming back. It's always about, it's going to cost. But actually, and I understand that, particularly if you adopt a scattergun approach to international, I'm just going to chase opportunities. I think if you can define your international strategy, capture that, and then incorporate it into your wider organizational strategic plan, identify it as a focus and objective, it becomes much more manageable. International becomes less frighteningly large in scope and becomes much more attainable in objectives. And I think, yes, well, there are costs attached to, probably arguably less costs now in travel costs, but yes, you'll have product development expenses, perhaps additional staffing or resourcing requirements. But
translations, there are costs, but there are costs to expansion in any capacity.
Anyway, absolutely.
If it is intentional and it is part of a strategy, it can be measured, it can be phased. I imagine this to be part of someone's long-term strategy, an organization's future expansion, or really just future survival. This may not even be an opportunity to expand to new markets. This may be the new landscape in which we all work.
Yeah, well, I think we are seeing, around the world, we're seeing associations. Again, I will never name names on here, but I am seeing, and you'll be as well, associations whose mission creep is expanding beyond their traditional physical borders, and I don't blame them at all, because there's opportunity. Why not? But I think we need to be, as organizations, as association leaders, mindful of that. And just as I'm talking, and I think it's really important, just as we're talking about opportunity for you and your association, well, someone else is going to be thinking about that as well. So in terms of managing your space, controlling your space, influencing your space, it's as much about understanding and managing that as well. Because, okay, you may decide that international isn't for you, but that's not to say that your contemporary becomes your competitor and starts looking at your, for want of a better word, territory. So again, is being mindful of all that. And an international strategy may not necessarily be about expansion. It may be about containment. It may be about
Right. This may be about playing defense in some ways.
Exactly. So again, it's not as basic as just saying we're going to start getting new members from France and Germany and Spain and Argentina or whatever. It's not as simple and as straightforward as that. International is sophisticated. It needs to be because of all the complexities of it. But that's not an excuse. That shouldn't be the excuse to not do it.
Or not to at least consider it. I mean, yes, financial, time zones, language barriers, cultural differences, spreading yourself too thin as an organization. These are all things to consider, not reasons to say no,
Absolutely.
But things to consider in part of that informed conversation. Because I think as we've outlined here, though it's been conversational and back and forth, I think there are some specific and very tangible benefits, not only for the organization, but for the membership, for the mission, for the discussion around who you serve and how you do it. I mean, not only, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think, for me, that's the kind of the one sort of area, the one risk, if you like, or problem area that we've not spoken about yet is about, I think often is this fear that there's going, if we begin to expand beyond our natural borders, we begin to lose relevance, or we begin to we're going to try and dilute our message, or we're going to try and be everything to everybody, means we end up being, nothing.
That's a real trap. That's a real trap.
It is. And again, I think it's a trap that's born out of experience, that's born out of, as you say, this kind of, conversational approach to, if you like, to international relations and activities rather than a structured strategic approach to it. But I think, it's a valid concern, but I will always push back to, the fundamental responsibility we have as membership organizations and as association leaders is to enhance and widen an association's reputation and credibility. And how we do that is by providing always new and added value to our members' experience and of their association. So, all those risks are valid. All those considerations and concerns are absolutely need to be looked at. But I never ever think it's a reason to not do it.
Oh, and this is why when I'm working with boards, my question to them is often, what does this organization look like in 2040 or 2030? Yeah. What do we define as our reach, our parameters, our impact in 10 plus years from now? Imagining that by that time people are traveling to Mars, they're living on the moon, babies are living to 150. I feel like people think of the future in short-sighted terms. They're not thinking big enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
point people back to our futures. Go on. I was going to say, point people back to our futures literacy podcast. And true. I mean, it all. That's the whole point. It's all intertwined. Mm-hmm. And when I think of organizational relevance and operational effectiveness, there are going to be scary conversations as an executive, balancing resources and bandwidth and all of it. But there are, I'm sure, many a sacred cow on your menu that you could get rid of, that would free up some bandwidth, some tools, some resources, some staffing, because you're not going to get there. You're not going to get to that future by doing what you've always done and by engaging who you've always engaged. So, and I make no apology for being.
You're the global guy. You're
Atlantic
pro-global
centric, whatever the terminology was. I make no apology for that. Far from it.
But I appreciate that you acknowledge, and I am pro-global as well in a measured and intentional way. In
an American way, you know that Canada and Mexico exist. Is that what you mean?
Stop.
Yes.
I'm super global. I'm super-ish global.
It's like the worst. I don't know if that's the worst or the best superhero name ever. Super global.
Well, you're global guy. You're not global man. You're global guy.
I hear you.
I'll get you a mask and a sash. But I think I'm glad we had this. Thank you for bringing your angst and your bee in the bonnet to the association transformation table.
I will always bring
appreciate it.
you my angst, always without fail.
Just public service announcement. This podcast is not intended to be Andrew's therapy. So we will stay association focused, but if his struggles and his pain ever can benefit the rest of us, we will surely dive in to the topics that are appropriate. So I'm glad we did this. I think outlining these benefits and highlighting the challenges to discuss is a necessary conversation. And sadly, it's probably one we're going to have many more times with our boards, with our clients, with the members who are dropping, so that at least an informed decision can be made by those leaders that we help to guide.
I feel a white paper coming on.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. I feel like I need to write something now as well.
Oh, wow. I thought this was cathartic. I thought you had worked through this.
Yeah, no, that was good therapy. But now I feel like I need to, go on a crusade about this, actually. Because I feel that's how strongly do you know what? That's how much I value our friendship.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah. You know what? And I will make a commitment. I'm going to go and identify a couple clients or associations that are moving into that global space. Because I think it's important to tell the story of those who've made that decision.
Absolutely. That's good,
and are at the infancy of that expansion. Those who are already there, those who are big time and they've managed it and they're winning at the global game. Great. Congratulations. But I need to know how we get there. I need to understand the struggles and the pain points and what to do differently from someone's, journey.
Yes.
Someone's shared experience. So that's what I'm going to look for. So if you are an association transformation listener and you'd like to join us on this podcast and share your story of globalization or are about to make that make that decision, we'd love to hear how it's going for you. We'd love to hear the pros and the cons and what your members are concerned about or excited about.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I know you're wrapping up, and I don't mean to interrupt you when you're wrapping up because you always get into a good flow.
Yes,
but actually, I'm totally up for it as well. If there's someone listening and they're thinking, "God, you're just talking absolute nonsense," come on and talk to us about it, because I think I don't want us to be an echo chamber. I want us to be challenged about this as well, because I feel so strongly in my opinion on it. I totally want to hear what other people have got to say on it as well. Otherwise, what's the point of having discussion and debate? We can't be informed otherwise. So, if you don't want to do it and you've decided why you're not going to do it, come on as well and help me understand.
All right. Well, there you go. Our door is open. Our microphones are open. We're eager to have you. And we encourage you to reach out to us at hello@yourconsort.com. You can also tweet us. And of course, you can find Association Transformation wherever you get your podcasts. Make us one of your favorites. And we will see you next time. Until then, put your members and your mission first.